Hello class. Today we're going to be talking about supplier management and development. Just as within our organizations we develop our human resources through training and other exercises like that, we also take that beyond and give it to our suppliers. It's an extension of what we do internally, we do it externally. The first thing we'd like to know is, how well is any given supplier performing? This is an age-old question. If we don't know how well they're supplying, we don't know how to go about developing them, what kinds of training to give them, or what even to look for. And so we're going to develop in this chapter, or in this lesson, we're going to talk about the methods and systems of collecting information and data so that we can analyze it, so that we can measure, rate, or rank across suppliers. We are creating what you might call a report card, and it's a standardized report card that you can use from one supplier to the next. Now the first question we have is what to measure. You're going to have quantitative data, which is, it looks like, hey, this is good stuff to measure. But the quantitative data is the easy stuff to measure. We can take a look at delivery time. We can take a look at, parts quality that were turned in and things like that. Those are easy to do on checklists and so on. But we start looking at, what about the qualitative things? Is management amenable or easygoing? Are they going to work with us? Things like that. And so you have quantitative and qualitative variables that you need to decide which ones we're going to measure, and then how do you go about measuring them. And they're going to fit into the areas of delivery, quality, cost reduction, and there's going to be other areas too. We need to determine how often we're going to measure and how often we're going to report. There are some things that you probably need reports generated maybe once a month or once a week, maybe even just once a year. It all depends, and it's something that you need to make, or that management needs to make as an internal decision. Now, what do you do with this data? Well, you determine who are the poorly performing suppliers so that we can bring them up to speed. We can figure out where we're going to spend our money in the future. We're going to identify ways or places where we can, do more improvement. It allows us to make our purchasing or sourcing decisions. Now, the weighted point system is the one that I'd like to emphasize in this lesson. There are several that are presented in your textbook, and because of a matter of time, we're not going to present all of them, but I'm going to go with the weighted point system. The first thing is that we're looking at something that has less bias, that is more objective, or as the bullet says on your PowerPoint, less subjective. What we do is that we weigh each one of, we assign weights, that is, and we quantify scores across different performance categories. Categories may be like quality, delivery, availability of technology, ease of working with people, and so on. Those are different categories. And we go ahead and assign weights. Which are the most important ones? Usually your traditional ones are going to be cost and quality and delivery, but you may have a list within your own organization of, say, maybe 10 or 15. I would be careful in coming up with 100 of these, because that sometimes is too much to handle. Go with something that is probably no more than 10. Okay? What is a good number? 7. 9. Anything that is manageable. If you think you can handle 100, well, power to you, but I think you're going to regret it. Now, the weights can be adjusted depending on your needs, but I'd say find out what your real needs are, and if it's working, you can tweak it from company to company, time to time as you do this, but justify it, record it, because somebody's going to be asking you, well, what was the weight on this? You did it last year and your weight has changed this year. Why? I've already talked about carefully selecting your categories and the number of categories, and your weights. That's an internal decision. That's something that you are going to have to do with other people. Don't let one person do it. Work this out as a team kind of thing. And of course, as I mentioned before, develop a set of decision rules, write them down, justify them, and keep them. And yes, they can be modified from time to time. Well, we see a chart here that has all of this, in a weighted point system. In the first column, we have the categories: delivery, quality, cost competitiveness, service factors. And when you add them all up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Notice that there's 10 of them here. You may have more, you may have subsets that feed into this. But anyway, this is a very good, simple chart. We have a weight. And all of those weights, and that's in the second column, you add them up, they're going to come up to 100%. Usually you would like to have your most important weights, the heavy weights, at the top. And then you have the score for each of the companies in that column named score, and you multiply weight times score, and you come up with a weighted score. You add it up, and notice this supplier came up with a 3.55, and I would suspect, and you want to write it down someplace, well, it does at the bottom, and the scale says 1 equals poor, 5 equals excellent. So they are towards between average and excellent. Very good system. It's one that you can use very easily. Now, one of the things we have with working with a supply base is how many suppliers. What's the optimum number? It's the Goldilocks effect. Not too many, not too few. And then rationalization is where you think about, you come up with a rationale of how many and which ones do you maintain, do you keep. And of course you have optimization, is that keeping the suppliers that are the most capable that you need. This should be a continuous, ongoing process. You're always going back to suppliers, measuring, comparing them, taking a look, and letting them know, of course, give them feedback and say, we have this internal process, and you can tell them how they're doing. It's just like a report card in school. It's not just a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing. Now, one of the things that happens is that there's a net reduction of suppliers, and that's because we don't need to have, generally, with most companies, a whole bunch of suppliers. You want to have a smaller set of suppliers so that you can work with them on a regular basis. Now, in some cases, you may add suppliers. And with the bottom bullet, we're taking a look at what is the right number of suppliers. Again, Goldilocks. What is the right? It's not too hot, not too cold, but just right, just like the porridge. Now, there are phases and activities to working with suppliers. We start first with the development of the supplier evaluation. We communicate this with them. We want them to be okay with it because they're going to have to supply us with information. We go ahead, and once that we find our suppliers, we're going to start working towards the elimination of the marginal and small volume suppliers. And it's going to be, I'd say probably, well, they may not think it's good for them, but they're probably not giving you the best attention as you require. And then you may even start working at replacement of good suppliers with better suppliers. And then you start working on supplier development activities to improve performance even better. The final bullet, and this may be unreachable at the very get-go for a lot of companies, but that's a global search for world-class suppliers. This may be something that happens a few years later. But anyway, it is part of the activities or phases to do in this process. Notice here that we have a commodity A, commodity B, and a commodity C. And the black bars are those companies that are candidates for development. Okay, actually, they're the top performing companies. Let me take that back, and I'm pointing them out. Here's black, and this one was green. Now, this pink and this this one version of yellow, same over here. These companies are candidates for development. This yellow and this smaller green and light blue, the same over here. These are the ones that we would eliminate. The supplier development process is, and I'm going to read through this, but don't get too bored, is identify the critical commodities for development. Not all commodities will be developed. There are some things that are a dime a dozen. Buying, say, sheet metal screws that you don't need this. And then you identify critical suppliers, those who do the very best as far as performance of cost, quality, delivery, etc. You form a cross-functional team within your own organization to meet with their top management team, and you're going to identify opportunities and the probabilities for development of what seems to be the best that is workable and doable. You will define key metrics and cost-sharing mechanisms. This is a mutually developed topic. It's not just your company. Their company has to buy into it too. You reach agreement on key projects and joint resource requirements. What's going to happen is that you're going to be working and they're going to be working with you too. They're going to have people delivering information to you, and they should have buy-in because they should know that it's going to improve their company too. And finally, you monitor the status of projects and modify strategies as appropriate. And one of the things that our authors have forgotten to do is to take a little arrow that takes us from here and takes us all the way back to step number 1. It is a continuous improvement process.